Hi, so this is a lesson on how to practice scales, or a few possible ways of practicing scales. So for today, and this is probably for the intermediate level player, early intermediate, we're going to go over 3 different ways of possibly practicing scales. So I'm going to use 3 different exercises from my ebook, 20 Favorite Exercises for Classical Guitar. The first one is exercise number 11. That deals with destination points. So we'll be playing through to destination points, and we'll talk about why that's important. The other exercise is exercise number 12. This is rhythmic vitality, so using different rhythms to practice your scales. And then the third one is articulation and dynamics, which is exercise number 13. So in this one, using different articulations to practice scales. Staccato, for example, or legato, or dynamics. So, I'll walk you through the exercises and we'll talk about tips along the way. So I recommend all 3 exercises use the same scale pattern, so I recommend you just learn the final scale pattern first, which is like this, starting on the 5th string. So again, the first octave starts here, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, shift. That's through the octave. And then the upper octave, again. So there's just a shift between them. Shift. So, number 11, scales and destination points. So, sometimes people practice scales and they blaze through them, and I'll sometimes tell my students like, well, that's good, but it seems like it's not very secure everywhere. So, if you practice up to a specific destination point, then what you're going to do is strengthen every one of those destination points. So every note in the scale will be like a strong arrival point, will be a confident arrival. So for example, if you take just 3 notes, C, D, E, and you say, I'm going to play legato through those 3 notes, so not staccato, but legato, and I'm going to stop on the E so I can hear that E ring out. E. So the next destination, if that's successful, if you can do that successfully, then you go to the next destination, which was an F. Now I'm hearing that F ring out. So I can really tell if I've arrived on it properly. It's not buzzing, which I might not have noticed if I was kind of just blazing through the scale. You go up to the G. And the hardest part is going to be the shift in the next one, right? So a lot of people will kind of like fudge the shift and it won't sound that good. But if you treat it as the destination point, then you know like it has to ring out and sound pretty solid in order to be strong and confident. So you can go through the entire scale that way, right? And you don't have to necessarily even just start from the beginning. You could start anywhere in the scale. Or even just... But I like the idea of saying like, how far can I make it through the scale legato? And then when you start from the top, you know, there's a couple of notes. Is that legato or not? And the hardest part is going to be the shift, always. Whoops. So I have to practice that. A little bit better. So really making sure you can tackle every single part of your scale. Because some people go home and they just practice their scales endlessly over and over and over, and they don't even know if they're getting better, or they're just going faster and faster on the metronome, which is fine, but it doesn't necessarily tackle problems. You want to identify issues such as the shift and then really work just on that, making sure that you're actually confident in doing it well. So destination points is a great way to do that. And you should use all the right hand combinations, IM, MA, AMI, so like IM, IM, or MAM, or AM, AMI, you know, like that. Rest stroke, free stroke, all the different combinations, and I've listed some in the book. So let's move on to the next one. So rhythmic vitality. Really, this is another way of identifying areas of the scale that are strong and weak. So for example, that time, the note just before the shift was long, making the shift a little bit easier. But what if I reverse that? Did you see the short rhythm occurred between this note and this note? Making the shift even harder, which is great because it forces me to practice that shift and say, like, I have to do that shift better than anything else, which is a really great way to practice. It's a really great way to like encourage yourself to tackle problems. So those are two different rhythms. You can also make up patterns, right? Like triplets in groups of 3, where you go back one note every 3. Whoops. Or you could fragment it. All of these different combinations will identify possible problems, and then you can work on them and tackle them. Because remember, practicing is mainly about identifying problems and then solving the problems. If you're just playing, that doesn't really improve your technique at all. You need to identify a problem, tackle that problem, and overcome it, and then you're better. If you're just playing over and over, you might get a little bit faster and you might get a little bit more efficient, but really you're not tackling the issues that are holding you back. So, and then the last one is exercise number 13, articulation and dynamics. So one thing would be staccato. I'm doing the staccato mostly in the right hand by placing the next available finger on the string before it has to play, which is also a great way to improve speed and accuracy in your scales. It's called pre-planting, right? So you're always planting the next finger on the string so it's there before it has to play. Of course, that stops the sound, so you get a staccato note. Now, if you're watching my left hand while I do this, I'm actually also releasing the pressure on each note afterwards. Do you see I lift it up just like a little tiny bit? So I do a little bit of both when I do staccato. You could do scales with slurs. With dynamics. You could do something much harder, is like contrasting dynamics. So like 4 notes of forte followed by 4 notes of pianissimo. Sorry. That's all really tough stuff to do, and it requires control. So I think that I've been saying this over and over, but the important thing is to not just like go home and just blaze through your scales, but to work your scales in different ways so you discover what's going to be required of them. Because really the point of practicing scales is, well, on the one hand, to become familiar with fingerboard harmony and fingerboard knowledge, but on the other side, it's really to get good at playing music, right? And music has dynamics, it has articulations, has different rhythms, has all these different things. And you want your technique to develop in a way that will accomplish all your musical goals. You don't want your technique to just develop on its own. You're really good at technique, but your pieces are kind of awful. You don't want that. You want those two things to come together so that when you're practicing your technique, you're practicing all your pieces and you're improving all your pieces by practicing scales. So I hope you found that helpful. I'm going to do videos for the rest of the exercises in the book as well. But you can just watch the videos for free and pick up tips that way if you like. Thanks very much.